Hello, and welcome back to the Fae Banner Review, where we talk about units potentially breaking the game again. And by potentially, I mean almost certainly with what we just got. Today, we have a brand new emblem banner featuring Emblem Roy. This is both very awesome and very terrifying to hear if you're familiar with Engage. And as per tradition, I will be using this coveted small line graph that may or may not be small at the end of the day to rank the brand new emblem banner, as well as the circle graph that may or may not be a circle at the end of the day alongside it. Today's rankings will be based on how many Binding Blade units we got in the past 18 months. And if you could hit that like and subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you! The emblem we have this time around is none other than Roy, and I'm gonna be honest, I thought they'd sooner make up an emblem before dropping him. Glad to have been wrong about that one though. It's awesome to see him finally get his emblem version after so long. Okay, now it's time for the terror to set in. How obscene is this unit? Let's see. Emblem Roy comes with Young Lion Edge, which is a slaying distant counter sword with built-in canto distance. It grants 25 true damage during combat, 15 true damage reduction, an additional 15 true damage reduction when a foe's special goes off. He grants Imbue, full tempo, and stats to himself and any ally within 3 rows and columns of Roy during combat, Spectrum 15 for himself and 5 for allies, and he could use Binding Blade Style. Binding Blade Style allows Roy to attack from 2 spaces away and decreases the speed check necessary to make a follow-up attack by 10 speed once per turn. On top of a PRF special in Blazing Lion, which is a 5 cooldown special that boosts his damage by his entire speed stat, it grants reflex and the increased speed checks by 10 statuses to himself and any ally within 2 spaces of him at the start of the player phase or enemy phase. It grants 40% special damage reduction during combat, no follow-up, miracle once per combat, potent follow 100%, and when initiating combat, he applies Divine Vein Flame within a 5-space line after combat. Okay, so imagine every Omni tank in the past year and put it all into one unit. That's this unit, except with Miracle and Reflex and the ability to initiate combat and run away after, and this unit literally has everything. Unless I'm forgetting an effect, in which case he does not have literally everything. But I'm stumped on what else he could even need on top of what he already has. He has Special Miracle, so he's guaranteed surviving a hit. He has Start of Combat Healing to secure his Miracle. He has Reflex so he can retaliate with a lot of damage. Potent so he can blend in with every other 5-star unit this book. I also like that he inflicts Flame Terrain after initiating combat, so he can make mix phasing a lot easier by preventing some units from getting in the first place. I think he pretty much covers everything he needs to cover, although I guess it depends on how much damage he can reduce on any first attack. He has the special damage reduction in flat amount from his weapon, but there's a non-zero chance he gets into Miracle range on the first attack. It could be a case where he's wholly relying on his Miracle effect for survival, which can make him incredibly susceptible to Brave hits or even the Erica ring. Or, you know, if the trailer is to be taken at face value. I don't think it will be that bad, but actually, would it be better if that was the case? The idea of fighting a unit that gets Start of Combat Healing, Miracle, and Reflex every combat doesn't sound like the most fun thing to fight, let alone if it took more than one hit to get him in the Miracle range in the first place. I think no matter what, he's going to be a really strong tank purely on the basis of all the effects in his kit though. But even if it turns out he's on the squishier side of things, which, I mean, looking at all this stuff, I don't know if I believe that. He'd mostly be susceptible to Brave hits and probably Frozen, which isn't a lot, even if they are a bit common. He has the increases speed difference necessary for a foe to make a follow-up attack by 10 during combat status that seriously needs a better, more concise name than that. I'm just gonna call it speed-based Frozen for the sake of brevity. It means he isn't as susceptible to Potent either, which would have otherwise been another way of getting around his Miracle. His first hit bulk can also be patched out with the right support too. I don't think he's unbeatable though, but I think he's going to be really scary in practice. He kind of just has everything. Except for Null Counter Disrupt. Right, that's the effect I forgot. Thankfully, he could just run that as his B skill over whatever he comes with. And speaking of which, Roy also comes with a bunch of inheritable skills, including Pair Up 4, Attack Speed Faith, and a brand new A skill in Rise Above 4, which grants 7 visible HP, 12 visible attack speed defense and res. It grants 7 true damage during combat, and 7 first hits true damage reduction. That's a ridiculously strong skill. It's a very simple skill, all things considered, but I wouldn't write it off at all. It doesn't have any interesting effects, it's really just stats, but there's a lot of them and units really do like stats. It's especially important to note that no other A skill grants this many stats by itself, so it's one of the best options on that front. There are also visible stats, so you can pair it up with Instruct or Patience. Patience is a really good shout since it can make getting the potent follow effect so much easier for so many more units. Instruct units like the visible stats as well since it can make giving out great talent a lot easier too. I think it will also be good for combat purposes even if you're missing out on stuff like tempo from Duelist Blow or Canto Distance from Swift Spectre. Getting tempo support isn't the hardest thing to do these days thanks to dual support. Canto Distance could be an issue for some units, but it really just depends on the team, honestly. I think as far as A skills go, it's still going to be one of the go-to options for so many units, but that might also be due to a lack of options. And speaking of options, for anyone looking for a new A skill for their flyer or cavalry unit, I'm happy to announce that they can't get it. It's locked to infantry and armors. It would have been too unbalanced, please understand. Besides that, Pair Up and Attack Speed Faith are pretty great tanking skills for your infantry units. However, the main highlight is definitely Rise Above 4 since it's a massive stat stick skill that a bunch of units would really like. If you end up with multiple copies of Roy, then it's definitely worth passing around. And speaking of passing around, there's the Emblem Ring effect, aka the thing people really care about the most. This time around, it grants 3 visible HP attack, speed, defense, and res when equipped. It has the standard special damage boost, and it grants Miracle once per turn when the foe initiates combat. To the surprise of nobody, Roy gives out Miracle and stats. I think we all knew it was going to be the case considering Marnie had it in her PRF, but this is definitely way more obnoxious comparatively. For context, Marnie's Miracle effect was built into her weapon, so you could get around it with Fatal Smoke 4 or any status effect that just nullifies it. Since this Miracle is in the special, it means you can't disable it with Fatal Smoke or any similar effect. Although this is assuming that's how it works here because there isn't a clause that says otherwise. I think it's safe to assume that's the case. Regardless, it's a once per turn Miracle effect, which is extremely strong. You can toss it on an armor or an infantry tank. So basically an enemy phase unit or an enemy phase unit. Cut me some slack here. Having it on a speedy infantry tank in particular could also be really strong since they're less likely to be affected by any sort of follow-up that gets around it. We got Fallen Male Byleth recently and he has the 80% special damage reduction thing on his first attack. So when combined with the Roy emblem effect, you can make it even more difficult to take him down. Doesn't that sound really fun to fight? I like the idea of giving it to shield fighter armors, but the issue with that is that I would have to fight it, and I really don't want to do that, so don't do that, please. But also, Marthring is required for shield fighter sets if you're running Pavi's or Aegis, so you'd have to downgrade the special for it. It could be worthwhile, though, but you'd have to test it. Ooh, okay, I have another idea that's not just pure enemy phase. You use Young Claude, initiate with him, you get that bonus that turns all the damage to 1 on the enemy phase, and then you have Miracle on the follow-up, so that's basically just no damage anyway. And look at that, you got yourself a player phase user of the Roy Ring, who then enemy phases after, but you get my point. It's something, right? You could also put it on insert enemy phase unit here, so they can insert enemy phase. That'd be a really good use for it too. Unfortunately, there isn't much else to say besides go put it on an enemy phase unit because it's an enemy phase Miracle Ring. It's a very straightforward effect. A lot of tanks are going to want this effect, and all I could say to that is thank you, Roy, for what may be the most obnoxious ring effect since Emblem Corrin. It's lit, fam! And other than that, that sure is Emblem Roy. He's a broken unit with a broken ring and really good fodder to boot. This unit is going to be obnoxious to deal with unless the trailer isn't lying about him being really reliant on his Miracle. That could probably be patched out with the right support though. However, before you could use Roy V, you must fight his color share 3. You know, because it's an emblem banner he's sharing with other units. And what's an end of the month banner without an end of the month banner share? As of late, they've been getting better in part due to them putting seasonals on them again. And I'm happy to announce that this banner is once again fine. It's just fine. Although even that's debatable, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. For now, let's start with the best part of the banner, aka the Roy share. He's sharing with Harmonic Brave Celica and Emblem Lucina. This is an insanely good red share. Harmonic Brave Celica isn't that old of a unit, and she's basically a newer Brave male Byleth. She has 3 range style, Brave hits, and Miracle. She'll still put in work even now, and extra copies aren't even that bad either since she has Swift Spectre and Arc Rival. Definitely a solid choice here. And Emblem Lucina is still one of the best support units in the game currently. She gives out Drive special damage reduction on every hit. She's an action eco unit that also gives out Future Witness, and she has a decent Emblem Ring effect to boot. These 2 units sharing with Roy is absurdly good value, and I think it's worth summoning for that alone. In fact, pretend the other colors don't exist here, because they sure are, bad. Okay, colorless isn't the worst, honestly. It has Rearmed La Rochelle, Valentine's Hortensia, and Entwined Ninian. Rearmed La Rochelle and Hortensia are a great combo together because you could duplicate Hortensia's staff fodder onto La Rochelle, aka Guardian Plus and the special. Besides that though, Hortensia is a decent enough unit, and La Rochelle is trying her best. At least she has all the staff fodder you'd ever want with Arcane Latona, Amplify, and Ice Lock though. Ninian, on the other hand, sure is Ninian for better or worse. She's a dancer that refreshes Kanto effects, but all of her notable support only applies once she dances, which is incredibly bad. If she were able to give it out at the start of the turn or something, it would have been a lot better, but as it stands, she's just kind of there. At least she has Shadow Shift fodder, which isn't the worst, but it doesn't really make up for it overall, and honestly, the colorless share could be a lot better. It really isn't the best. It is at least better offerings than the blue share, assuming you have any of these units. Heimdallr and Hother are really strong units, but additional copies don't do much of anything. Neither of them have any notable fodder, it's niche at best. Heimdallr has a bunch of attack and res skills, and Hother has a bunch of attack and res skills. Extra copies won't be helpful for the most part. And Chosen Fjorm is actually pretty decent still. She's a reflex tank with a 2-space style and a PRF special, and I'm sure glad we don't have another one of those on this banner. She's still okay though. That said, I wouldn't risk going into blue because of who she's sharing with unless, again, you don't own either of them. If you don't, Hother is still mandatory for Aetherite's defense, and Heimdallr is mandatory for getting people to quit the game. Might be better to wait for another share though. And last, we have the green share with Valentine's Veil, Legendary Diamant, and Valley. This is trash. Okay, maybe calling it trash isn't the nicest thing ever, but it certainly is the most accurate thing ever. Valentine's Veil doesn't do anything impressive both support-wise and combat-wise. Her fodder is also heavily attack and res leaning, but she does at least have aerial detect, which is really good. However, you could just grab a copy of her in the codes instead if fodder is a priority here. Legendary Diamant is also in the same boat for the most part. His fodder is a lot more applicable though, since he has Arc Rival, Distant Bonus Amp, and Brutal Tempest. It's hardly the worst, but it just consists of stuff that's either constantly reprinted like the special, or you could find better alternatives to use instead. And Valley is the only redeemable unit in this share. She can still be really obnoxious to fight because of her special Miracle, and she gives Miracle to allies as well. Still an all-around great and annoying unit, but not worth going out of your way for here. You definitely want to wait for a rerun if you don't have her currently. And overall, well, you can't win them all, I guess. Red is doing the heavy lifting here, so better pray you don't get pity broken by anything that isn't in that share. Dab, 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 dab. And now that we've gone over the brand new emblem unit, I think it's time we rank the banner on the small line graph that may or may not be small at the end of the day. And would you look at that? The brand new emblem banner has earned a 2 out of 10. On the small line graph, and based on my understanding of the banner, I believe that it would be best fit somewhere around this area of the circle graph. It's an emblem and a broken one at that. And even if he wasn't broken, you'd probably summon for it anyway. And you may be wondering to yourself, is there any reason to skip this absurdly broken emblem unit? And you may already know the answer to that. And if you don't, then yeah, you probably shouldn't skip this banner. Roy really is such an insane unit between his own performance as a unit and the emblem ring effect he gives out. Roy has everything a tank wants between Reflex, Miracle, other things. He has a lot of other things. Giving out Miracle and stats for an emblem ring effect is also really great. It's another tanking option that a lot of units will really appreciate. And he's sharing with 2 incredible units in Emblem Lucina and he's sharing with 1 incredible unit in Emblem Lucina and a pretty solid unit in Celica. She's good, not Lucina levels obviously, but she's pretty good, yeah. The banner overall could be a bit better, but if you're prioritizing red only, then it should be fine. Just hope you only get red orbs then. Most of you watching probably aren't going to skip the banner, but there are some things worth keeping in mind. We have the Choose Your Legends 3 Harmonics banner coming up in about a week if you'd rather summon for a new Alm or Micaiah. It'll probably also have Chosen Leguron on there as well. Next month also starts the beginning of the summer banners, but we really don't know what they'll have. Probably more 3 houses. If you like 3 houses, I'm sure you really like 3 houses. We also currently have the Fallen banner, which has Byleth and some rearmed units, as well as the Bride banner with a really good Dancer and Peony, and a really strong D-mode in Air. There's a lot of worthwhile stuff to summon on currently, but I think Roy is still the priority here. It's hard to argue against an emblem unit that does all of this, TBH, 2BH, to be quite H. I still don't know if I should be happy or afraid of Emblem Roy. I'll let you know in a week.
How about this?